Hello, and welcome to my video. I'm Maury Reese. In this video, I'm going to show you how I tried to create a more realistic sounding harpsichord, like a classical harpsichord that was 300 or 400 years old. The harpsichord has a long history. It was invented in the 16th century in Italy. Now, there are 2 to 4 strings per key that could be tuned to the same pitch. In other words, all 4 strings are the same, or they could be tuned an octave apart. The instrument I'm trying to create is a 2-string harpsichord, meaning every key on the keyboard, when I press a key, it will pluck 2 strings in the harpsichord. And in the beginning, the harpsichord looked odd to us. The black keys were white and the white keys were black. And there's a couple of reasons for this. First of all, the white keys are made of ivory. And back in the 16 and the 1700s in England and Europe, ivory was as expensive as gold. So to have a keyboard made out of ivory keys would have been horribly expensive. Furthermore, ivory is heavier. So what you're seeing here is these black keys are made out of wood. They're made out of ebony. And the white keys are made out of ivory. So the ebony keys made of wood are much lighter than the ivory key, and it's easier to play. Now bear in mind, there were a lot of rich aristocratic ladies that liked to play the harpsichord, so it was important that things look right. These ladies took great pride in their beautiful, dainty white hands, and so their white hands played against this black keyboard looked very nice. And that's the other reason they wanted black keys. So the beautiful hands of the rich ladies would be shown off. So here's a real simple explanation of how a harpsichord works. When you press down on the key, you press up a lever. And this lever has a little post here, and there's a little quill. And it really was a quill. In the beginning, these were made out of crow's feathers. This little quill comes up and it actually plucks the string. Unlike a piano, when I press my piano key, a hammer comes up and it hits that string. That's not the way a harpsichord works. A harpsichord, every string is plucked like a harp player plucks the strings, or a guitar player might pluck the strings on a guitar. And it gives us a very, very different sound from a piano. And furthermore, on a piano, when I press a key, a hammer hits one string. And I've already said in a harpsichord, it might hit 2, 3, or even 4 strings simultaneously, giving us a much different kind of a sound. Harpsichords are not cheap if you want a good one. Yeah, here's one, $17,900, $13,500, $10,000, $15,800. Oh, here's a cheap one, $7,400. And this very plain, dull-looking thing is $9,800. So I know what you're thinking. Wow, those must be the most expensive harpsichords there are. Nope, not even close. Here is the most expensive harpsichord that's ever been sold, and it was sold about 20 years ago. This thing was built in 1679, so it was over 500 years old when the guy bought it. And how much did he pay? He paid $390,500. Now, all you keyboard piano players, I mean, look at this thing. Here's the keyboard where I sit. And right here is a post. I mean, how are you supposed to put your legs in under here? And the answer is you didn't. You had to set away from this thing and reach out to reach these keys. I can't imagine how uncomfortable this thing must have been to play. But somebody paid $390,000 for it. More power to them. Now, I have chosen a very specific harpsichord that I want to try to simulate. And I found this harpsichord in Frederick Handel's home in London. And if you don't know who Handel is, have you ever heard of the Messiah? Yeah, that guy. Frederick Handel wrote the Messiah. He wrote lots of other pieces as well, and he wrote a lot of great music for the harpsichord. Anyway, his home in London is now a museum, and they have several very, very beautiful, expensive harpsichord, and this is one of them. And so I have managed to get a recording of someone playing this harpsichord, and that's what I used as my model. The sound of this harpsichord is the goal that I'm striving to try to simulate with my little $300 PSR E463 keyboard. We'll see how I do. So here's what I'm going to do in this video. First, I'm going to show you how I set up my Yamaha PSR E463 keyboard. I'll take you through all of the settings so that if you want to go do this, you can do it as well. Then I'm going to actually play a recording of that harpsichord in Handel's house in London. I want you to hear what that thing sounded like, because that's what I'm trying to simulate. After we listen to Handel's harpsichord, then I'm going to play my E463 keyboard that I have gone in and set up as a harpsichord. And we can do a comparison, and you'll be able to judge how close did I come to simulating a $200,000 harpsichord with my little $300 keyboard. So you might want to write these things down. Here are all of the settings, and I'm going to do this live in just a moment. So there are two voices. I combined two instruments to create this harpsichord. So the main voice is an instrument 011, and its name is Cool Galaxy. Now, how in the world did I discover this instrument might fit into making a harpsichord? My friends, it was pure luck, trial and error. I sat at my keyboard for about 2.5 hours, and I tried literally several hundred different combinations of combining different instruments and going in and setting the reverb and the chorus and the resonance until I finally sort of stumbled onto something that I thought sounded pretty much like the harpsichord in Handel's home. So I know it sounds crazy, but my main instrument is something called Cool Galaxy, which is voice number 011. And here is how I set it up. Here's the volume, 0 octave, so I didn't raise or lower the keyboard. It's not panned to left or right, it's coming right down the middle. There's quite a bit of reverb. There's a little bit of chorus. I didn't mess with the attack. The default is 64. I left it there. The release, once I take my finger off of the keyboard, it releases a little bit slow, meaning that the sound lingers just a little bit, because that's kind of how a harpsichord works. The cutoff, I didn't mess with that. That was the default. And the resonance. The resonance is just kind of a fullness to the sound. The default was 64. I increased it just a little bit. I upped it to 82. Now, to do this, I press the function key, and then to work my way through these categories, I kept simply clicking the right category button. And in the video, when I do this live, you're going to hear me say click, click, category, category. I'm clicking this button and I'm working my way through all of these settings. When I get to one of them, then I use the dial wheel here to change the setting itself. So this is the main voice. Let me show you the dual voice. Here's the dual voice. The dual voice is voice number 005, which is called OCT Harpsy. It stands for Octave Harpsichord. What this harpsichord is set up to do is when I press a key, it plays two strings, and those two strings are tuned one octave apart. Okay? So I went through the same thing. I set the volume and the pan and the reverb, and here are all of the settings that I set up for the octave harpsichord, which is my second voice. And once again, I press the function key, and then using the category button, I worked my way through all of these settings, using the dial wheel to change each one once I got there with the category key. So let's go live now. And I've taken my camera and I've set it right up over the screen of my keyboard. And I'm going to go through the process that I've just described, and I will set the main voice and the dual voice. And once again, my goal is I'm trying to create a harpsichord that sounds like that harpsichord in Frederick Handel's home in London. That's my goal. Here we are at the E463 keyboard, and I've got my camera focused on the screen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the setup of my main voice and my dual voice. Because as I said before, I'm combining two different instruments to create this harpsichord. So my main voice is an instrument called Cool Galaxy, and it's number 010. So I'm reaching out and I'm pressing the function key. Ready? Click. And I'm going to now go through all of the settings for the main voice. The first thing I'm going to set is the volume, and I've got it set at 116. Now I'm going to press the right category button, and I'm going to work my way through and show you all the settings that I've set. Ready? Right category, click. So this says I don't want to raise this instrument. I want it to be right where it is. So this would allow me to raise or lower by an octave. Click. This is the pan. Do I want the music to play out of the left or right stereo speakers? I want it in the middle, so I'm going to leave that alone. Click, and I'm clicking the category button. This is the main reverb, and as you see, I've cranked in quite a bit. 111. By the way, the maximum would be 124, so I want lots of reverb. Click. This is the chorus. This fleshes out and gives a body to the sound. And I've got a little bit of it cranked in, just 58. Ready? Click. This is the attack. When I press the key on my keyboard, how fast does the sound take to come up to full volume? And this is the default, and I'm just going to leave it alone. Click. This is the release. When I let go of the key, how long does the sound persist? And this is the default right in the middle, so I'm leaving that alone too. Click. This is the cutoff. This is real technical. I'm not going to bore you with it. I've just left it at the default, which is 64. And I'm hitting the right category button. Ready? Click. This is the resonance. Resonance kind of fleshes out and gives body to the sound. And I've got a little bit of it cranked in. I've got it set at 82. By the way, the maximum is always 124. Ready? Click. Now we're going to go in and we're going to set the dual voice. And the instrument that I have selected is the octave harpsichord. What this is this is a harpsichord that has two strings being plucked for each key. So when I press a key, I pluck two strings in the harpsichord. Okay, so I'm hitting the right category button and we're going to go through this instrument and set it up. Click. The dual voice volume is set at 110. That's pretty loud, 110 out of 124. Click. Once again, the octave, I don't want it to be raised or lowered. I want it to just play where it is. So don't raise or lower the keyboard. The pan, I want it to come right in the middle of my head. I want it to come equally from the left and right stereo speakers. The reverb, I want quite a bit of this. So I have the dual voice reverb set at 107. Click. The chorus, the default was 64. I have just a little bit, so I've cranked in 69 on the chorus. Click. The attack, I left that alone. The default is 64. I left it at 64. Click. The release, I left that at 56. Just a little slow on the release. It lets the strings on the harpsichord ring a little bit longer. The cutoff, I didn't mess with that at all. I left it at the default, which is 64. The resonance, I cranked in a fair amount here. A maximum would be 120. I've cranked in 90. The default is 64. Okay, here we are at the keyboard. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to play a recording of Frederick Handel's The Harmonious Blacksmith. Now, this was performed on that synthesizer in Frederick Handel's home, which is now a museum in London. Bear in mind, it was a professional recording with several $100,000 worth of recording engineers. All I've got is a little $200 GoPro camera and an 11-year-old Macintosh laptop running GarageBand and iMovie, which is free. But what the heck? So let's listen to The Harmonious Blacksmith by Handel. Okay, that was a recording of the harpsichord in Handel's museum in London. Now let me play it on my Yamaha E463. Okay, now let's listen to Greensleeves, which was written in 1584, played on the harpsichord in Handel's museum. Okay, now I'll play green sleeves on my E463. And let me close with Handel's little piece in the key of G.